Sometimes games can provide intensely personal and deeply emotional experiences without really seeming like it's meaning to, and Minabo: A Walk Through Life is absolutely that game for me. It really comments on where I personally am in life with my lived experiences, how I think and feel and interact with the world around me, but also my current situation where I've got elderly parents, they're failing in their health, and it kind of puts me in very interesting and sometimes awkward situations where I'm having to decide what my next course of action is and the impacts of that with every single thing that I do. Minabo: A Walk Through Life sees you play as a turnip that sprouts up from two loving turnipy parents, and you'll start off crawling and then walking and then running and perhaps skipping and perhaps procreating through life as you choose to balance out your own self-needs with the people that are around you. In the top left hand side of your screen you'll see your name, your age, and you'll see as you walk through that the seasons change very, very quickly in front of your eyes as you age through the steps of walking left to right. And you'll have a life expectancy chart that's at the bottom there in blue, and there's like a little dot which is essentially showcasing when you're going to die. And that will move closer or speed up further to being death depending on how you meet your needs of physical contact, intimacy and belonging. Now, you can only get these through the social interactions of everyone that's walking their period of life in front of you or behind you, and you'll move between these different turnips and you'll see that each of those have the three same traits, and they'll be displayed underneath you along with their age. Now, everyone is looking for physical contact, intimacy and belonging, but whether or not they'll give it to you depends on their lived experience and what their thoughts, feelings, personality and fears are in life as well. So, if they might be craving intimacy but don't have the ability to give intimacy at this moment, and you'll see that by the charts of the three interactions that are above the turnip, that kind of gives you a percentage of chance of whether or not the interaction of the three different traits will go well or not. They might reject you, and then that drops down their intimacy stat, but it will drop down yours as well. And so you can then choose to act in a regretful, indifferent, or an angry response back, which then shapes your personality for future interactions. And depending on how you portray your personality, depends on some additional buffs that you might get to your turnip as you walk through life. So it might mean that you make friends easier, or it might mean that you'll be able to sustain relationships easier. Or if you spend more time around your parents and siblings, it means your immediate family's wants and needs will reduce slower. However, if you go out and make loads of friends and ignore your parents and siblings, they might become more distant and therefore have their needs drop faster. But you'll instead become like a free bird that can just make friends with any old person, and you're alright, Jack. However, it might mean that if you're constantly angry, people might not want to approach you nearly as much, or you might be as more difficult to build up relationships with. And so finding a partner might be difficult. It might mean that you might want to walk the path of solitude and not talk to anyone whatsoever and just befriend some pets and be that typical at home with the cats person, although in this shape in turnip form as you go along. Inevitably, the people around you, or the turnips around you, will die, and you can't stop what's coming because the passage of time is omnipresent. As you walk forward, the seasons change and time passes. And so, do you choose to be friends but not particularly best friends with more turnips? Do you decide to just focus on your friends and family? Do you cultivate your own family, but as you walk forward, you're starting to distance yourself from your parents? And what Minabo does so well is that as your parents age and get older, they start to become a little bit greyer if they aren't having their needs met, or they're starting to fumble and stumble, and they get slower in their walking pace, so you're then having to wait and walk. But if you're waiting for your parents, maybe your siblings or your children might be running off ahead, doing their own life, and so you're having to physically choose, right, well, where am I going to go? Who am I going to look after? And I found myself trying to meet the needs of everyone around me to keep them going longer so that I had more of a clan of turnips walking along with me. whilst trying to like drag them over the next hill, thinking, come on parents, you'll be fine, watching that dot of life expectancy just creeping further and further and further to the right, along with my own at the same time. And it was a real comment on where I currently find myself in life at the moment. I turn 40 next year. I have a long distance relationship that's very difficult to manage and maintain because I'm looking after parents who aren't particularly well, with a job that's incessant, that it's just throwing all kinds of shit at me at all kinds of times of the day, demanding attention that I don't really want to give because I want to give it to my own projects, my own life, my own identity. And this game was like a microcosm of this juggling of life, trying to build your own path and looking after yourself whilst not caving in and collapsing and therefore bringing down other people with it if that's the path that you're going for. Ultimately though, it's a comment on self-care, and this needs to be part of a social, I guess, tribe or family to get your social needs met so that you can live a long and healthy life. And how you do that, whether that's through friends, family, siblings, children, pets, doesn't matter. They can all provide that kind of basic human need for you to sustain a healthy life going forward. And wherever you get that is great. There's also a big beast that will follow you around, so if you go too slowly it will swallow up and eat you, because it's almost trying to teach you to not stand still in life too, even if that means that you're letting go from friends who, if you don't put in the time to constantly return back to them and have some kind of positive interaction, they no longer stay as friends, they drop to acquaintances and then drop back to strangers. Your partner, who you've spent a long time romancing and ignoring everyone else to focus on that relationship, if you don't keep coming back to them, you can stop being a partner and go back to just being friends again, and like the relationship breaks down. But you might be needing to focus on your children because they all start off with real low bars for physical contact, intimacy and belonging, and you don't get the time to put into your partner, so you're trying to juggle all of that. And what on the surface looks like a real cosy game, I found incredibly emotional because it feels like I was trying to juggle all of these turnip relationships, just like what I'm trying to juggle all of these own personal relationships in my own life. And knowing that the ever march of time just is cruel and will take people away from you. And as they drop down dead and you see a tombstone, and then if they drop down dead in front of you, you get to choose whether or not to cry, be angry, or be indifferent and try and move on with life. And it really was quite hard hitting for something that seems so happy and joyous. Now, from a gaming perspective, I did run into a couple of annoyances. The main one is the fact that there's only one song in the soundtrack, and it repeats quite quickly, and whilst it's joyous and fanfarous and has an LBP mixed with Loco Roco vibe, it's only one song, and there's only so long you can stomach that, because this game, if you want to play it all the way through, is hours and hours and hours and hours of fun, because each playthrough lasts about half an hour. There's 25 missions for you to achieve different styles of life goals, and then once you've done the first 5, it unlocks like a freeform mode for you to be able to dictate some of your own kind of characteristics and not try and chase specific life goals for your turnip. This then forces you in the kind of mission mode to play in very different styles, because there's one where you want to run through life fast and burn out quickly. There's one where you want to go slowly and try and live to 100. There's one where you want loads of children. There's one where you prioritise your parents. There's one where you only go for pets and you don't want to make any friends. It's really tricky, and throughout all of this, you also get to meet people who have hats on, and if you manage to rock, paper, scissors for those hats, they'll buff you up in certain ways so that you can maybe sustain traits better or minimise the impact of a negative interaction, for example. There's loads here for you to uncover, and it forces you through the mission modes to play out in different ways and experience the full breadth of what Minabo has to offer. And yeah, this is definitely an indie gem that can, could, and does. And if you're in a midlife mini crisis in waiting as I am, this one might well make you think long after you've played it. And currently Minabo lives in my head rent free because it's left a real indelible mark in my brain that I'm chewing over even as I speak out this review. So yeah, thanks Minabo. You're causing me an extra midlife crisis and I wouldn't have it any other way. Written review will be over on higherplayinggames.com. Don't sleep on this. It looks like a really wholesome and simple concept, and it is, but it really lands all of its messages on the nose perfectly. And yeah, layered, and a bunch of turnips. Mwah. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.